Hey everybody, this is Justin here, aka Demonic Sweaters. Today I have a video all about how to convert acoustic drums to electronic. Now I've made some videos like this in the past, in fact using this same exact drum set, but now it's set as acoustic right now, so I'm going to reconvert it back to electronic. This time I'm going to be using internal triggers, and I'm going to be using mesh heads and electronic cymbals, and yeah, so I figured I'd walk you guys through the entire setup process and how you do all of this. So before we get started on this, be sure to check out my Amazon store down below if you want to pick up any electronic drum accessories or anything like that. Also, there's going to be links to triggers down there and all the stuff you're going to need to convert your acoustic drum to electronic, including cymbals and basically everything you will need. I will post links down below. So let's go ahead and get started on this project. It's really pretty easy to do, actually, once you have the equipment. So here we go. All right, first off, let's talk about what you're going to need. And first off, you're going to need a drum set. I'm using this Tama Club Jam Flyer, which is a very, very tiny drum set. It's got a 10-inch snare drum, an 8-inch tom, 10-inch floor tom, and a 14-inch bass drum. And I'm using this one, well, number one, I just like how compact it is. And I love this little kit. I've used it many, many times in various situations, electronic and acoustic. And you might have noticed I have this rim click thing on here. I was using this acoustic, but I think I'm going to leave that on there because I think that actually might help for the cross stick sound once I get the trigger in there. So we'll see. I'm not sure about that, but you know, F note snares have something similar to this on it, so I was thinking that might actually help for the rim click. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the other stuff you're going to need. All right, so in this bag, I've got a bunch of electronic cymbals, and right here, pull that out of there. This is a Pintech splash cymbal. This is just a single zone. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that or not yet, but maybe. I've got a Lemon 16-inch 3-zone ride cymbal, more like 15 and a half. And the reason why I went with this one, I do have bigger ones, but you know, this is a very small kit, so I'm going to try to keep the cymbals pretty small, and this 16 is going to be the biggest one, or 15, whatever it is. Okay, and then we've also got a 13-inch Lemon crash. There, it's dual zone rather. This is a 3-zone Simmons ride cymbal, but I'm going to use this as a dual zone crash because I actually really like this cymbal. It's pretty quiet to hit and it feels really nice, and I like the way it moves. So that's going to be my bigger second crash. And then I've got some Roland VH10 electronic hi-hats. There's the controller, and this just basically goes on the hi-hat stand like that. You're also going to need some of these. These are basically spin stoppers. Most of the cymbals, like Lemons, come with these. Most electronic cymbals will come with them. And this is your standard Roland type right here. But there are other brands like Simmons, like that one Simmons that I have. Where is it? I know I brought it. Simmons uses these kind. They're kind of like a hexagonal shaped spin stopper. So that'll be for the one Simmons cymbal. And the rest are Roland style. Lemons have like a Roland style, so I use those. This right here is basically Silentrim. This is made by Pintech as well, and this can go around the hoops of the drums. Now I'm only going to do it on the snare drum because my toms are going to be single zone, so I really have no reason to put this on there. So I'm only going to use this on the snare drum. You're going to need some internal triggers or external. I'm going to be using a mixture here. This one right here, I'll post a link to this particular style down below. This is a Go E drum, and these ones are really good and they're very inexpensive. This one's actually a single zone, but it has everything basically needed here to be a dual zone trigger. And so I'm just going to add another piezo right here and use that for my snare drum. So I'll have dual zone on the snare. And then these are Drum Tech, I believe they're called Pro triggers. And these are single zone, but they work really good. And these are going to be on all the toms and the kick drum. You're going to need some mesh heads. I've got an assortment of mesh heads here. This is a Drum Tech Real Feel, which is a 3-ply head. And then I've got some dual ply, both white and black heads. So I think I'm going to use the white on the tops and then the blacks on the bottoms. Now, I will mention as well that it is a really good idea to use mesh heads on both top and bottom of your drums, or front and back of the kick drum, if you want the best performance as far as triggering. Also, it makes them a lot quieter. If you have a standard you know, mylar drum head on the bottom, you'll still get a decent amount of resonance out of that drum. So if you do top and bottoms of mesh heads, everything will be much, much quieter and they will just trigger better. The other option is just to take off your resonant heads, but we don't want to do that. It doesn't look very good. So use top and bottom mesh heads. All right, I'm gonna start off with the snare because this one's gonna be the biggest pain in the butt. So first thing, obviously, I'm gonna have to take off both top and bottom heads. So I'm not gonna bore you with all of this. All right, so I just wanted to show you guys this. This is something that I've noticed on all of these triggers that I've ever bought, is these things almost never fit in the vent hole without modifying this or taking out this little metal protector thing. Even if you do, a lot of times you have to drill it out. So I'm not gonna do that. I just wanted to show you that it doesn't fit. I mean, by all means, you're welcome to if you want, but the way I always do this, so I don't have to modify the drum like at all, is I just drill a hole or punch a hole in the bottom mesh head and just feed it through there. And then basically I just use this. I just, you know, I'll put a hole in the head and then just put this through and then just tighten this down on the bottom of the head. And it works fine. I've never had one bust through doing that. So that's just my way because I really don't like modifying the drum. Now, see, like I was saying, this is the Go E-Drum single zone trigger that you can get on Amazon. And these are great triggers. They work really, really, really well. And so do the dual zone triggers. The only difference is this just comes with the same exact output jack. And so you just plug this into here and it just is missing one of the piezos. So if you have another piezo, like I do right here, I'm just gonna basically solder this, you know, to this connection right here, and then just stick this on the side of the shell, and then I'll have a dual zone trigger. So it's essentially what they would do if you bought the dual zone version. It's like a little bit nicer, you know, if you buy the full version, but since I don't have one, I'm just gonna use this. All right, now next let's talk about trigger placement, like where you should put it on the drum. Now, in order to figure that out, for your snare drum, you have to think about where you like to position your throw off. I usually like to have mine, like if I were facing the drum like this, pretty much exactly how it is right now, with this slightly to the left, not all the way like that, but a little bit like right here. You know, it doesn't really matter that much, but you know, I just kind of like to do it this way. And then once you do that, then I usually like to put it around 11 o'clock is usually where I put the trigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this right here. So in order to do it on this, it's super simple. We're just gonna remove one of the lug screws here. And I don't believe I need to do both. I think just one will do just fine on this one. Let me see. Yeah, so, and then I just screw that back in there. And you wanna get it, you know, up a little bit, not sticking up super high, but you know, enough to where it's gonna make decent contact with the head. You know, some people get all finicky about it and measure it with like a really specific amount, but I haven't noticed that that makes that big of a difference. I just sort of feel it, and if it feels like it's gonna be, you know, slightly above the edge is kind of what I try to do. And that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna tighten it back up. And then you can simply just lay a head on there to see how it works, you know, if it's making good contact or not. So I'll put that on there. And yeah, it seems like it's fine. So that should be good. All right, so next I've got to solder my other piezo on there. And what I'm gonna do with this is once I solder it, I'm just gonna tape it to the side of the shell using gaffer's tape. Now I've tried a lot of different things. You could use double-sided tape, but the thing about double-sided tape is when you go to peel it off, it's so sticky, a lot of times it will destroy your piezo. Gaff tape, I find, stays on there good, does a good job, and then you're able to remove it if you want to. So that's why I like gaffer's tape. Okay, now as far as putting the hole in the bottom head for the jack to go through, I use the super scientific method of just poking a hole with scissors. So actually, let me make sure I'm near where I want to be. And that's pretty much all you have to do. This little rip right here, I'll be able to force that through there. You don't want to do it too big or it's not going to work good. So let's see if I can do it now. It's down through. I might have to do a little bit more than that. Yep, and that's that. There you go. And then just tighten it up on the other side. Do I have a washer for this thing? Oops, almost crushed my piezo. I don't think I have a washer, but whatever. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Once I plug it in, I'm not going to be unplugging it a bunch. Okay, and that's that. All right, now I just need to solder the other zone to these two little leads here. I don't have a ton of space to work with here. Another way I could have done this is poked the hole through the head and done this without putting it in the drum yet, which is probably a better idea. So maybe you want to do that so you don't have to mess with it the way I am right here. But this should be fine. Let's just twist these together first. I have to see if I have electrical tape somewhere. I think I do. Well, I know I do, I just don't know where it is. Okay, now just solder those. Helps if you know how to solder. You want to heat up the wires that you're soldering, not the solder, and then touch the solder to the wires. Pretty much the opposite of what I just did there on that second one. First one was good. The second one I didn't do so good. All right. And that should do it. Let me just look at that. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, and then secure with a little piece of electrical tape. Let me find that. It's basically just to keep them from touching anything and shorting out. It's not really to hold it together. All right, that's that. Okay, and then just plug in my other connection here. And then figure out where I'm gonna stick this piezo. So my front is here. Now I should have done this, I probably should have put this jack on the opposite side. Okay, I'm gonna rotate this head because yeah, I want this more over here, closer to where, will it reach? No, it's not gonna reach. Closer to where I do my click, you know, my rim shot, right? Cross stick rather, not rim shot. Okay, so let me turn off the camera while I do this. All right, as you can see, I just used some gaffer's tape to tape the piezo on there. And make sure you get it on there really good though, because you want to make sure you have good connection. But if it's good gaffer's tape, it should hold it. It may come off if you're using cheaper gaffer's tape or if you're using duct tape or something like that. So make sure you're using, you know, good high quality gaffer's tape. This one is called Gaffer Power. But you know, gaffer's tape's useful for many, many things. That's why I like it. All right, so that's that one. Let's go ahead and put the batter head on there. Of course, the more intelligent thing to do would be to test this before putting it all together, but I don't have the module hooked up or anything yet, so I'm going to live dangerously and just assume it's going to work. I'm really curious to see how well this works because, you know, honestly, the cross stick thing is usually one of the most difficult thing to achieve consistently when you build your own A to E snare drum, I've found. You know, I can get it to work pretty good, but never as good as the real ones, you know, like the real triggers you can buy, or pads rather. So we'll see. Maybe this will solve that problem. I mean, that's what F-Note does, so maybe that is the answer. Make sure your head is, you know, tight-ish. As tight as a regular snare is usually what I do. Now these Drumtech real feel heads feel really good, but they're very thick. They're 3-ply, and sometimes they don't work so good for triggering, so I'm hoping this one will be fine on a smaller drum like this. It should be okay, but there we go. So there's the full drum. The full drum. The completed drum. Well, actually, I didn't put on the stick saver yet, or the Silentrim. Let me do that. Okay, now like with this stuff too, I had several pieces already cut. You don't have to cover the whole drum, you know, only put it where you're gonna be hitting is basically what you need to do. So I'm just gonna put it right here. All right, that is that. Oh, for the snares, I usually do put the snare wires back on, even though it's completely pointless. It's just, you know, I don't like this rattling around and stuff. And so if you just put it on there and tighten it back up, then it keeps the throw off from moving around and making extra sound. So just put this back on. Of course, you don't have to worry about adjusting it perfectly or anything. Just get it on there, good enough. Okay, there we go. So these Drumtech triggers, as you can see, the bracket is much longer. So that's why I didn't use one of these on the snare. Well, plus they're single zone. But you're gonna have to take off, or I'm gonna have to take off all of the screws there to make this work. So basically it's gonna have to go like that. So let me go ahead and do that. Just thinking about where this mounts. I mean, you know, I just try to put it where I'm not going to hit it directly. On the, you know, the furthest away from me seems to be the most logical for me. These Tama Club Jams. These Tama Club Jams are amazing little drum sets. I really love these things. They sound great acoustically as well. And hopefully it doesn't fall out of there. Gaff tape to the rescue. I'm going to tape these on there, so that way I don't have to worry about holding them. Another thing that's great about gaffer's tape is it doesn't leave residue. That's why they use it in stage situations. I mean, barely leaves the residue, a little bit. You want to make sure that the lug is loose, or the tension rod rather, on the one that you're taking off, otherwise it'll put a bunch of pressure on there when you loosen these screws and then maybe damage the lug. Which I forgot to do because I did it on the other one. Loosen that up. Okay, now these Drumtech triggers are much less fancy as to how they connect to the trigger inside. You just run this little cable through the vent hole, pull it inside, and then this connects to a lug on the drum. I'll put it on one of the bottom ones. But I actually prefer this because it's a lot less work, and it's just, you know, it's easier to deal with. So to me, I kind of like that better. All right, put this together. This is just a generic 2-ply mesh head from Amazon. Which these things, they're hit or miss. Sometimes you get one that's really good, and sometimes they're just not that good at all. Just, you know, they're very inconsistent with the quality. But this one seems to be okay. All right, and that is that. Process is the same on all the other drums. I don't really think I need to show you that anymore, because especially since I'm using the same triggers on all the other drums. So I will come back after I finish doing this. All right, so another thing I wanted to mention here is also a very good idea to put some muffling in your bass drum, because you don't want the head really vibrating any more than necessary. So put something in there and you'll get a better response. This might be overkill, but it's a very small bass drum. Actually, I'm gonna do that after I put on the trigger. So for the bass drum, I like to put mine, again, at about 11 o'clock. Some people, you know, if you read old manuals on how to do it, they always said to put it on the bottom, but to me, that's a little weird because that's further away from the beater. I like 11 o'clock, especially if you're using a double bass drum pedal, because that positions it kind of, you know, to pick up those two beaters pretty much evenly. So that's why I like to do that. And once again, I'm kind of eyeing it. And that looks pretty good to me. Tighten it up. Now for the bass drum, I am going to leave the resonant head on there. Yes, it would be. I did bring a mesh head, and I thought about putting it on the resonant head, but I'm going to muffle it so much I don't think it matters. And I like leaving the Tama logo head on there, even though nobody's going to be able to see it, where I'm putting it up against the wall, so but whatever. I'm also just being lazy. So put this in here. Drum tech head, real feel head. Put my hoop back on, and we should be good. Well, I should have remembered to plug in the trigger, so now I have to take this off again. I'm also going to use that twisty tie I had to kind of tie this up so that way it doesn't get, you know, when I put in the mounting hardware for the tom, that it doesn't snag the wire or anything like that. So that's why I'm doing that. All right, I'm almost all set up here. I'm just putting the cymbals on, and I figured I would show you that. I mean, most of you probably know how to do this already, but might as well show you. Here's the spin stopper. Now you'll notice that I removed all of the hardware from the cymbal stand. You don't want a washer or anything like that on there. We're just going to put that on here and tighten it up. And I ended up using all the lemon cymbals that I had actually instead of using the Simmons, just to keep it consistent here. Okay, and then just going to use one single pretty thin felt on the top. And that is all you need. And then it should move a little bit when you hit it. Okay, and I'm going to back away here so you can see the whole kit. Now I haven't hooked anything up yet. I haven't used them or put on the module yet or anything. But you can see there's the drums all set up. Looking pretty cool. So now I have to hook up the module. Oh, one more cymbal. Almost forgot. This is a Aquarian spring mount. They don't really make these anymore as far as I know. But Pintech used to sell them with their cymbals. And it was a pretty cool way to mount them. But all this does is you just basically take off all the hardware on the stand. Again, just put this on here. The thing is though with these is they're not great for the cymbal stand because they kind of, you know, they basically you're screwing the screw right into the thread of the cymbal stand. that's that. I have my little splash there. Might be overkill. I don't know if I'm gonna keep that there or not, but maybe. All right, now I've got to hook up the module and to make sure everything works. Actually, I decided not to go with the splash. I just thought it looked a little bit cluttered, so I got rid of it. I think that looks cleaner. I like it a little better. All right, now as far as the module, I'm using a Roland TD17. Now, this, in my opinion, is the best module that you can get for electronic conversions. It just makes the most sense. I'm sure there's better modules out there, but generally I'm going to be using Easy Drummer and Superior Drummer 3. Hardly ever going to be using the module sounds. And this module triggers excellent. And the module sounds are not bad either. So if I want to use them, like if I want to use it live, I can. And it also has sample import. I've created some kits in here where I imported my own samples. But it's a great, great module. For the money, they're about $500. There's really no better choice. And honestly, if you're going to do an A to E conversion, I highly recommend using some kind of Roland module. It doesn't have to be the TD17. There's, the TD11 is a good one you can find used. Basically any Roland module is going to be good. The reason being is the settings that you have available inside of the Roland modules lend themselves a lot more to acoustic drum conversions than any other brand out there. I know there's a lot of people like Elisa's stuff, and I like some Elisa's stuff too, but even the good modules don't really have the same settings and parameters that the Rolands do that you can dial in, pretty much any pad or, trigger or cymbal, in existence. You can pretty much get them all to work in a Roland module, and you can dial them in really well. And plus the trigger accuracy is really good on these. And plus it has USB audio, which is very handy as well. You can use the USB audio and not use the internal sounds and still use Easy Drummer, which is great. So mounting the module, I'm actually using this part right here. This is a Roland clamp. I forget the model number. And it works pretty good. I have the mounting post on. You can actually mount this post a couple of different ways, but I have it, on the vertical position. And it just fits just perfectly right here. If I put it right there. And then right in between my hi-hat and my tom. And I'll try not to hit it if I can. And I'll try not to hit it too much if possible. And now I just have to plug in all the cables. All right, so I got it all finished. It's actually the following day. I was too exhausted last night to show you guys the rest of this, but it came out really, really good. Everything's working excellently. In fact, I think these triggers are functioning better in this kit than they were in my PDP, if you saw my videos about the PDP, because that kit was like a full-size drum kit, and it's actually much harder to get full-size drums to trigger accurately compared to smaller drums. It's just because the head vibrates less on smaller drums, and it's just easier to tweak them. And also, like I was thinking, that X-Click or cross stick thingy there, I forget what it's called, X-Click, I believe that's what it is. What's it? Yeah, X-Click. That actually does work really well to help get a reliable cross stick sound. So it's basically the same concept as the F notes and ATVs, where they have kind of a side stick piece of wood on there, and it just keeps it to where you're not hitting rubber, and it's just much easier to get that cross stick sound. And I'll show you that here in a second. And actually, I'll show you right now because I'm going to do a little demo of some playing. First, what I'll do is show you some internal sounds on the module. I have some custom kits in there, and then I will show you my custom kits in Superior Drummer 3. everybody, I'm really happy with how this came out. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you found it educational. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. What's your experience with A to E conversions? Tell me about your kit. I also just opened up the community section so you can actually post photos of your A to E conversions there on my channel. So go ahead and do that. Anyway, thanks for watching everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day.